In January 1989, Carlow County Heritage Society embarked on a force-funded project called Living Memory. It was the first such undertaking in Ireland, and it involved a group of young people helping out in a new way of looking at and recording history. The scheme involved training these young people in the use of video and audio equipment to record history as told by the people who had helped create it and had lived it. The young people were first taught the techniques among themselves, and they went on to record the views, experiences and reminiscences of the area's senior citizens on both audio and video tape. But they were also trained in the basic research skills required to make their work of real value to the researchers and historians of the future. No better person to explain the project in detail than a Carlow-born writer, publisher and historian in his own right who helped set up the entire Living Memory project. Heritage Society Chairman Pádraig O'Snoddy.
Michael Purcell in particular saw the opportunity and the need to get more and more people involved, not only on the collecting level, but then more importantly again on the recording level, since there were so many, as we looked on them, so many of the living links to people who were important to us in our background and our history, in the history of the town, the history of the national movement and so on, were dying without any record. And the idea was that through FOSS schemes or employment release schemes, that we get people, train them insofar as we could, at least make them learn on the job, as it were, and to record as much as we could, wherever we could, however we could, with whatever type of mechanism, recording units, or as we have here, cameras, that we could get them to onto the record for the future and for the present. Because seeing some of the interviews played back, there's no doubt, but there's a great charge, there's a great feeling, there's a great piece of echoing back and enjoying yourself, and realisation, yeah, jeepers, I didn't know that fellow was so-and-so. Oh, did you know? And it built in questions and answers already come in once you see somebody making statements, see somebody working with a particular thing. It's a great idea.
The project got very good support from FOSS officer Des Lynch.
It's primarily community-based, where the Carlow County Heritage, as a community-based organisation, applied to FOSS for grant aid to employ a number of young persons to carry out a particular project. Yeah. Now, in this instance, the name of their project was Live in Memory, and it's quite unique and quite interesting project. The primary purpose, you see, of teamwork is to afford work experience to unemployed young persons. The idea is that they get this work experience, and we hope that because they get it, they will be able to enhance or increase their chances to obtain market employment. But at the same time, it is crucial that they would be carrying out useful work, community-based work that would be deemed to be useful, where the public generally, if you wish, would be quite satisfied that this money was well spent. Now, in this particular project, we feel that the money was well spent because it's going to now record and have available for us now and for posterity the history, so to speak, of ordinary people as they saw things change throughout their life. And one thing that I thought was very interesting in the scheme, there was going to be an interaction or a relationship built up between young people and the older generation, and a mutual respect and understanding of the differences that tends to exist between the generations.
The scheme was under the direct personal supervision of Delegate to Carlow Heritage Society's Advisory Committee, Michael Purcell. And one of the first people interviewed by the young researchers was local historian and Old Carlow Society founder member Alec Burns.
There was a parish priest there at the time, a Father Bulger, who conceived the idea of purchasing it from Colonel Brune and bring it over here and erect it. And Colonel Brune, to give him his due, he sold it to him at a very, very reasonable price, I believe. The price was I never saw it publicised in history, but he sold it to him at a very, very reasonable price. And then the whole thing was taken down, and stone by stone, you see. And it was brought across here. A lot of it, the work was done voluntary. The farming community at night time was to bring the stones over, and every stone was marked. It was back into place again. But I think they added a couple of wings to the building, as far as I can remember.
How important is the project in the eyes of historian and Heritage Society chairman Pádraig O'Snoddy?
Very important, because I think one of the things in history, and I was trained as an historian, is the real challenge for history is to give history back to the people who made it. And one of the problems, people don't think of history as they have the history of the ordinary people. They think of history as great moments in the development of man, battles won, governments elected, revolutions happening. And history is the distillation of all our experiences, whatever they are and however they are. And so the real actors in history, the real foot soldiers, the real people who make things happen, very often are forgotten, and that only the leaders, or only what is deemed to be now the significant figures, which may not be so significant in 25 years' time, that these are the people we climbed. And because I think through history we get to understand who we are, where we came from, and a little more knowledge about ourselves. History isn't only the past, it's very much the present, and therefore it's the future as well. And local history is the key and kernel of synthetic history, and local history is totally the experience of the ordinary people we have about us, and therefore any scheme like this can't be but useful, exciting and helpful, and can be built on and can go on and on and on. And among the many things Carlow has, we were talking about it today, was a collection of archive material which is second to none. We have the biggest, if we can hold on to it, if we're big enough to face the challenge of it. We have material which is unparalleled in any one of the counties of Ireland.
Pádraig O'Snoddy went on to itemise some of this valuable material, which is now in the possession of the local Heritage Society and which the Living Memory Group is helping to catalogue.
Manuscript notes created for census returns, for instance, in particular parishes, in the early part of the 19th century, where records have not been. There's the total run of grand jury records, and this is the unique feature, for something like 250 or 260 years. All the grand jury records for the whole county is there. That's unparalleled. There's other material, whether we'll be able to retain it in Carlow or not. For instance, very small thing. In 1843, there was an act brought in for the registration of firearms, and so marks were put on guns, and when I worked in the museum, these marks could come up and I was able to interpret what the marks meant. But what nobody could do was bring these marks to actually people. Who were they? All we knew CA meant that the gun was registered in Carlow. Well, apparently here in Carlow there are actually receipts listing the names of the people who got CA 127, and we can know who owned a particular weapon. Just a little thing, it's a little aside. That type of listing makes everything, even the material, well, and even in particular the material relics, makes them all the more resonant of the past. And I think it'll be a tremendously exciting thing for Carlow to have one of Carlow's extra unique pieces.
Many of the people interviewed were surprised that we were interested in their past, and even more incredulous that we should wish to record it. Yet it was glaringly obvious that these people had made a major and valuable contribution to their community as a whole. Among them, 96 years old Mrs. Nan Rocket.
It was terrible. Most awful experience. I don't think you could print it.
Well, you were telling them what you woke them up, you see, didn't you?
Yes, we were doing the Mikado. And here's Pendergast. In the Mikado, this particular scene, I had to go around with the Mikado. And they were all supposed to be dozing asleep under the trees, you see. And I had to go around with my fan. And I'd say, and his daughter-in-law elect. I wake them up. So anyway, they were only posing. But when I came to Peter, Pierce was really asleep. And I came along and I said, and his daughter-in-law elect. oh Jesus, out in front of the whole crowd. I never forgot it. Every time I meet him, I say to him, do you remember the night you let the Holy Name out here? Well, I couldn't keep my face straight. How I got through that scene. No one would believe it. The audience heard it. I heard it, but I had to go on.
Living Memory helped to break down not only the barriers between young and old. One of the more unusual interviews was with members of the enclosed Purcell community at Great Cullen, Carlow, shortly to celebrate the 100th anniversary of their arrival in the town.
To the Blessed Sacrament, and it was her wish that we start perpetual adoration, and we've had it uninterrupted now since 1903. Bad blow, we had to leave it off at night, and all the monasteries have adoration during the day. Not all of them have it during the night. The two monasteries have it during the night, but to get up for the night off the sunrise, the vine is good. We have the tradition.
Continuous.
Continuous.
Yeah. And what were you saying was the one interruption?
Blue. That blue.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That was the only time.
Yeah.
The activities of the project team extended far beyond the town boundaries. One such interview took place in the grounds of Huntingdon Castle, Clonegall, with local historian Willie White.
Our Castle, Clonegall. Now, this was originally called Clonegall Castle because of the area, the village it is in. The castle itself, the name Huntingdon came after Queen Elizabeth's forces came into an area which was known as the Liverrock in 1588. The Liverrock, when they captured the castles of Clonogan, Clohammon and Clonmullen, which was in the sept of the Kavnas. The keep of the castle itself, the work on that was commenced in 1615. It was turned into a fortress in 1625. Now the walls at the base of the keep were 6 feet thick and thinning to about 3 feet at the top. The left, on the southern side of the castle, we have the conservatory. Here we had the vine, a grapevine taken from the vine at Hampden Court, which is purportedly planted by Henry VIII. The running man, the little black man, was brought from India to the castle because plenty of the people of the castle travelled and served all over the world.
Many older people in the community feel that their personal memories are not sufficiently important to be interesting, yet old people have a lot to offer. As experienced human beings, they have much to teach us about their business interests, social history, personal relationships, and many other aspects of life. Mrs. Hyland and Miss Haid spoke about their long association with the Leeks Dairy in Carlow.
Milk until the pasteurising temperature. Pasteurising isn't the same. No way is it the same.
Yeah.
The fresh milk cooled straight from the cow and very clean. And then I'll tell you, for some years before the war now, my brother, that was at Clonmore, they had grade A milk, which was top quality. The cows had to be tested regularly, and you couldn't get milk from anyone else, no other farmers. And oh, it was lovely. And even the inspector in Dublin told him that time, you needn't be delivering it twice a day, that milk will keep even in the summer without pasteurising it. So we used to do that. And then the war came, and then there was a kind of a scarcity, of course.
Years ago, and we were probably the last generation to have it at one stage, they used to teach what they called rural science and local history in the primary schools. And we got a feeling with the Barrow Valley and its history, which Father Miller wrote, and my father contributed a lot to rural science or rural whatever it was, brought us out onto the hedgerows and into the fields, and we knew what particular leaves were, what particular plants were. And we were much better rooted in our place, in our Carlowness. Because of that, those two subjects were dropped. And people grew up without a sense of place, without a sense of awareness, without the mindset that gives you, the confidence in yourself as a Carlovian or whatever. And this, I think, not only is it recapturing so much of the past, but it is given to a new generation of people an involvement in and an understanding of their place and their peers and their parents and the experiences of their parents, grandparents and so on. And you can hear it from them. God, I didn't know that. Did you know? Jeez, my father was, look at this. And that is only tremendous, because anything that enhances and fulfills, expands your experience and makes you appreciate your family, your people, and makes you understand a lot of the sadnesses that go around. That comes out, and I think everyone who has worked on the scheme and through the scheme are delighted to have had the experience of so doing.
One of the most disconcerting aspects of life for old people today is that it seems that their accumulated experiences appear to be no longer obviously useful. Nowadays, technical development is so fast that knowledge and acquired skills tend to become outdated and obsolete. Bill Rice regrets a lot of what has been lost.
I have seen a lot of changes. A lot of changes, not for the better either. Because the way the world is going today, they have no respect. Not in a way. But there's the point of see young people today, including you know, but then you have the wrong one. To damage the whole thing. Will you agree with me now? And that's about... Oh, of course they do. The whole thing is rotten then. Are near enough to it. That's a pity. Because the point is that young girls and men today, that was educated and knows everything, you know. And no job. That's not the personal side of it. Will you agree with me?
Definitely.
Oh, God.
Their lives could be wasted from
wasted, that's right. That's honest. Now, I know what I'm talking about, do I?
Sure
and I didn't go to the Trinity College for a day, because I was born with it. Honest to God, honest to God. I was born with brain. One thing out. Only with school I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
That's all. Long enough. Oh, long enough. We went longer to let me say out here. Oh, we had to read now in the name of God.
One of the values of the Living Memory Project was the stimulating and entertaining effect it had on older members of our community. Among other things, it helped reduce the isolation that many elderly people feel. Mrs. Green sums it up in a little poem.
Here, and this is a very short one. Thanks very much. A rose looked in through the window one bleak November morn. It was a lingering ray of summer, the wreck of the year to adorn. The beauty and grace of the blossom shed gladness and joy through the room, and the rose looking in at the window dispersed the November gloom. There's a rose looking in through the window in every condition of life, in days of content and enjoyment, and hours of bitterness rife. The voice of some friend in affliction, some kindness in trouble's dark day, is the rose looking in at the window and chasing the shadows away.
What you have seen on this video is just a few excerpts from the 100 or so recordings of people interviewed so far on this project. But this is not the end. Living Memory will continue to be promoted, leaving us a key to a wealth of knowledge fast disappearing forever from our lives. Every old person has a story to tell, if only someone will listen. Carlow County Heritage Society intends to continue with this work. Perhaps you would like to help us.
C'est au monde qui s'étonne, c'est pour Jean-François Nicot, c'est pour accueillir une âme, une fleur qui s'ouvre au jour, à peine une flamme, encore faible qui réclame protection, tendresse,